Good day, everybody. It's 3rd of October, Friday. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, a lot of news. There's always a lot of news. I don't even know what to start with. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave more noise in the background if you can't hear it. Always some noise in Belarus. Looks like they're breaking, let me see, I have to show you this way. Breaking ground over here. Going to be doing something. I'm kind of at a place where, like I said, they're starting some kind of construction over there. You can see the tall buildings in the background. I've never really been to this part of Minsk very much. Big city. Anyway, what's been happening the past few days? As you know, yesterday Putin gave his speech, his yearly speech at Valdai in Sochi, and everybody was anticipating that. He's always got interesting things to say whenever Putin has to speak at a forum like the St. Petersburg or SPIEF, you know, the economic forum or anything like that. He's going to be going to the G20 meeting, I suppose. I've heard that. So you got to get those assassins ready. I shouldn't even be saying that as kind of a joke, because these people, you remember that time when they were assassinating a lot of Russian diplomats, and I mentioned that already in a video not too long ago, and they even killed all these people on their their military team of, let's see, it was a musical team, choir, and I don't know, a lot of people. The whole entire airplane got to a certain altitude and then basically exploded. So as a matter of fact, that left from Sochi. I think it was on its way to, I don't know, Istanbul or something like that. But yes, a lot of things that Putin was talking about. And one thing, I don't know, I'll mention a few things that he said, but mostly one reason why a lot of people anticipate that, it's much more anticipated than from other leaders such as Macron or Starmer or even Trump, is because when Putin talks, he is honest. So you really get an insight into his character when he's talking and when he tells of his experiences and things and what he really thinks and what's going on in the world. It's not like a bunch of head fakes and things like that from even Donald Trump, of course. So yeah, anyone who is paying attention on my channel, you know, I talk a lot about this. You know, you never know what these people really think, these crazy leaders, because they come up with anything. Oh, I think I know where I'm at. I think that building, it's a new building. We're not too far from the Mall. So it's a little bit beyond that way. This building I've walked, that you're seeing right now, that's getting constructed in the background, I walked past that a long time ago when it was just being started, and it was, you know, blocked off. You couldn't see inside, and it's just going up higher and higher. I wonder how much higher it's going to go, and what the whole area, if they're going to be building a lot of building in Minsk, a lot of expansion of a lot of things. So, but anyway, what I was saying, when you see these leaders from the EU and from the US, even Australia, a lot of these places, you know, there's a tremendous amount of dishonesty and lying and head fakes, and I don't know. They lie to themselves and they shaft each other. They stab each other in the back. Even at times they promise something, they sign something, and they don't. I mean, they do it mostly to countries such as Russia and Iran, or China even. I don't know about China so much. I don't know if China's made that many agreements with them and the West has backed out, but they certainly do that with Russia and Iran. And the only leaders I would say that are honest and they seem to, you know, have a brain that actually works, is maybe in the European Union, is Orban and Fico. I don't know about some of these other ones. There's a lot to say about Macron in these past days. But as you know, they even had a meeting at Copenhagen. When was that? I think that was maybe yesterday as well. And it was either yesterday or the day before. And Orban, he left there basically in shock, shaking his head. And his words were that they really want to go to war. The EU and NATO, they really, really want a war with Russia. And they're coming up with all sorts of lucrative ways to provoke Russia to at least by appearances, it's another mark of dishonesty, at least by appearances, to make it look like Russia started the war. It's very much like what they did with eastern Ukraine. And of course they were pushing and pushing. And it looks like the whole idea for a long period of time, for maybe 2 decades, maybe 2 decades before that, is they really wanted a war with Russia. They wanted to take Ukraine and colonize Ukraine and get the resources. I don't know, I guess they really counted on that, and they really, that is part of their agenda. And it has to work as far as they're concerned. And of course, part of that agenda before that was Belarus, but Belarus was only for a strategic reason because it's very close to Russia. And of course, they eventually want some sort of attack on Russia. It's very crazy. I don't know. You know, what kind of attack? I think they want, as they say, as a strategic defeat of Russia, and they want to somehow deplete Russia. You know, like I can even bet that even maybe 2 decades ago, they were planning on destroying the Nord Stream pipeline. And of course, number 2, when that was built. Maybe they had no intention of ever using Nord Stream 2. You never know. I tell you what, these people, you don't know what they're talking about in the back room. I would not be shocked on anything. A lot of time this stuff comes out sometime in the future, but you never know what we're going to find out. Something just came out recently. That was... I guess this Vovan and Lexus, you know, these pranksters, these Russian pranksters, they called Samantha Powers, who used to be in charge of USAID, and, you know, basically they pranked her. As a matter of fact, I think they even have it on video where she's talking to them on the computer, and they gave her the impression that they were talking to Petro Poroshenko, and what she was revealing at that time. It's absolutely incredible. Now, we all know about this, what is it, $4 or $5 billion that Victoria Nuland admitted they gave to Ukraine. They put into Ukraine, and this is just the State Department, put in, I can't remember the number, of $4 billion or $5 billion they used to overthrow the government of Ukraine. As you know, the Maidan and all that, and to essentially put in Petro Poroshenko. And of course, you know about the telephone conversation when she was talking, oh, we'll put Yatsenyuk in there. And Yatsenyuk was kind of a poor guy, and I think he retired like a billionaire in the United States. He got his own pool, big complex. He's living really luxuriously. They made him I think it was the prime minister of Ukraine for a while. He facilitated a lot of that. And of course, at that same time, it was Petro Poroshenko, who was before Zelensky. And the chocolate king, he's in chocolate business or something like that. But anyway, talking to Samantha Powers, she was admitting, like I said, keep in mind, Victoria Nuland, she mentioned the 4 or 5 billion. We thought that was a giant amount of money used, for, finagling, paying people off, doing this and the other thing. Not weapons, just, well, maybe some, I don't know, but just to overthrow the government of Ukraine. And Samantha Powers admitted on this video call, like I said, it's on video, and she's saying that her agency, USAID, and of course George Soros is linked to that, and that's CIA as well, and they were giving every single month to Ukraine for, I don't know if it was specified for how long of a period of time, but every month, $1.5 billion of US taxpayers' money. $1.5 billion every single month. And it doesn't take very much months to add up to be more than $4 billion that came from the State Department. I'll tell you, that's not even part of it. There's a lot more than that. The money was coming in from various other points as well, not just USAID and not just from the United States State Department. They had money coming in from different areas. Can you imagine? All this was needed to keep Ukraine afloat in all that time. And what was happening to all that money? And I think that was even before Zelensky got in. And Zelensky, he catapulted up very, very quickly to a billionaire. And I remember when they put out in Forbes, I think he was worth $2.5 billion. And then soon after that, not even a year later, he was worth $5 billion. And then people were saying he had $10 billion. That was never substantiated. I guess the $5 billion was very, 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 very much substantiated. But of course they started getting a little suspicious then, and of course I think it was started to get blocked off how much money he had. I think even Elon Musk recently, he again took over first place. Who was that was who had more than him just recently? Oh, it was Larry Ellison from, you know, and you can see why he went down. He had taken over the #1 spot, at least according to Forbes, as being the richest person in the world. And then he was slated to buy TikTok. Of course, he's very, very pro-Israel. And of course, the entire reason for that is, and of course it was put out in Israeli meetings, is to take control of the narrative on TikTok. So Larry Ellison bought it. So maybe that's what bumped him back down. And then in the meantime, Elon Musk had made some extra money. So now he's got $1/2 trillion. One single person has $1/2 trillion. Interesting stuff. Yes. So what else? Yeah, but like I said with Larry Ellison, I mean, it only is an indication, like anybody can see this, of how it works in the West. It's, what is that? What's that expression again? Money talks, bullshit walks. And Israel, very, very well known. They have, and I guess there's a list, and I guess I have heard it was from Max Blumenthal. He put it out that Netanyahu himself made a list, a big long list of billionaires that he basically controls. And you know, some people say, oh, the President of the United States is the most powerful man in the world. But you have to wonder if there is if there is a condition where somebody controls, not even his wife, not Melania, you know, doesn't necessarily control, and not even his daughter, you know, who controls a lot of Donald Trump's attitudes and his opinions and his actions. But what if somebody else controls Donald Trump? Obviously, and everybody knows this. Everybody knows. This has been put out by so many people. Donald Trump even knows this, that Netanyahu controls Donald Trump. And then when you think that Netanyahu controls all these billionaires, it is a very frightening thought. It's a very frightening thought. Who is the most powerful person on earth? Well, it's not the President of the United States. You just have to ask, who controls the President of the United States? And then you'll find out who is the most powerful person. You know, it's not even having somebody who is part of what you would maybe call a military superpower, but you have a different type of superpower. It's called a superpower of influence. And when you can conduct assassinations and do anything you want to do, you know, you can defy. Say you have a treaty with the United States. I mean, an agreement, obviously, and you know, you're the right-hand man of the USA, and then USA has allies where they have, say, maybe their biggest military base in the entire Middle East, and working on friendly terms, and then just say that somebody decides to bomb that country, and then the United States can just look back and say, well, they have control over us, so we can't take any measures after that. Gosh, incredible. And of course, it's Israel. In Israel, when they were bombing Hamas, they were talking about peace negotiations, and during that time is when Israel bombed them, and Israel fully knew that. And it really makes you wonder, how does Israel know exactly where all these people are all the time, where their apartments are? They bomb them while they're in their sleep. They killed so many people. They bomb an entire I mean, it's like they all have GPS trackers on them, you know. And then they had the pager incident. Remember the pager incident when they engineered that these people get these pagers somehow. They it's just incredible. And a lot of times these people didn't even have their pager. Maybe their daughter had the pager or something, and little kids and things. Or maybe other people were around them, and they blew up the pagers and killed or either injured many other people besides. It's incredible. And you can get away with this stuff. It's incredible. And then you have to ask yourself, well, who is the most powerful country in the world? Not necessarily with just bombs. As a matter of fact, when the most powerful country with bombs will give every bomb they possibly can, as much as possible, to that country that has this influence. It is very frightening. It's very frightening, especially when they even admit it. It's much cheaper to buy a politician than to buy a tank. And everybody knows that they virtually, I mean, even Netanyahu has even come right out and said it, that he runs the United States. Frightening thought. I mean, most people know that. Anybody watching this channel, anybody watching a lot of other truth-telling channels or truth activists, frightening stuff, frightening stuff. America for Israel. I don't know. And you saw Ted Cruz. Who was it? I don't know if it was Tucker Carlson, somebody said. But anyway, very well, very obvious. No, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think maybe she was getting interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And in her opinion, and I can't deny it, prove me wrong, as what the Turning Point USA says as their expression. Prove me wrong. What she said was that Ted Cruz is probably far more loyal to Israel than he is to the United States. And now you're going to see him probably coming out and trying to prove that that's not true. But there's websites, and they even had it like this. It's certain congressmen and things. The title of their website is Israel's Best Friend. It's not like America First. Wow. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. I tell you what, I'm in the state of shock when you think about this, that you have some country that's apparently maybe the most powerful country in the world, maybe, and then you have some little country that is actually the most powerful country because they control that big country. Like I always say, it's like that movie Guardians of the Galaxy, and you have the United States. I'm Groot. And Israel is Rocket. Israel controls Groot. Anyway, so one point Putin was mentioning, what are these pigeons doing here? I don't have any food. No, I don't know what they do when they start picking around little stones or something. Maybe it helps their digestive system. I don't know what they're finding. See it before. You see? So, at one point Putin was mentioning, and it was actually, I mentioned that I was really flipped out on this on the video when I made this, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half ago, about Finland. It's absolutely incredible. And it's sort of like Putin and I, we're connected. We're connected for some odd reason. I you know, and it's like, when Putin doesn't say anything, it doesn't mean that everything is honky-dory, or that, I don't know, that it doesn't really surprise him as well. But Finland, they gave up their neutrality. And as you know, they were defeated by Russia in World War II. They were defeated. And Russia, so gracefully, gave them, I don't know, I think there was at some point, I don't even know when that was, there was a certain portion of land, maybe it belonged to Finland at some point in time, very, very small area, I think, and maybe Russia got that, maybe for strategic reasons or whatever, but they had other areas too, and they gave it back to Finland and said they can have their complete sovereignty, they can be a complete and independent nation. Russia will have nothing to do with them at all. They can either be friends with Russia or they can be enemies if they want to. However, they have to stay neutral. And Finland agreed to that. And then now all of a sudden they decided they want to be enemies of Russia. When they had something that's beautiful. That's what Putin couldn't believe, and I couldn't believe it either in the video that I made. It's unbelievable. You have this beautiful thing, neutrality. You can be best friends with the West. You can be best friends with Russia. You don't even have to have any military whatsoever, necessarily, unless you think the West is going to attack you. But Russia wasn't going to. Russia obeys their agreements they signed with other countries. But they decided they wanted to be enemies. Who was it with that, I forgot her name, this young girl that was, this young, bisexual, lesbian, or whatever like that. She's gone now. But anyway, when she was the leader, I think she's the one that signed it, but not that she did it alone. You had to have enough people to go along with this to join NATO, and Sweden nearly at the same time. And Putin said they got along fine with Sweden too. They had never any gripes whatsoever. Treaties and all sorts of things. Everything was perfectly fine. But I guess makes you wonder. Does somebody have the goods on somebody? And that's what I've been talking about, as I know as a fact. I've seen this kind of stuff, and maybe some of you out there have as well, that maybe have been working around people in intelligence and all that. They want to find people that have a weakness for certain things. Money is obvious. So many people do. That's the easiest one. But money, when you want to manipulate somebody with money, it can be a little bit expensive. A lot of time it's very, some people, sex, sometimes with little boys and little girls and who knows what all. Hey, that sounds like something to do with Epstein now, doesn't it? So there you have it right there. But anyway, but a lot of time these people get manipulated and they don't want to be exposed. And sometimes they get the goods are so powerful They do not want this stuff, anybody to ever know about this. When you hear about sometimes, and I've heard about it, and I highly suspect a lot of times even politicians. There was one in Schleswig-Holstein in Germany, I believe. But anyway, he committed suicide. And he probably actually did. He wasn't murdered and made it look like suicide. He actually did. They had probably the goods on him, and he was like a rising star. And anyway, that's how some things happen. Maybe the thought of being exposed, and he saw no way out. Anyway, just mentioning that. You know, you ever been in places and known people, and one day they're fine, and the next day you find out they hung themselves? You know, that sort of a deal. People slitting their wrists and things like that. I don't know if the rest of you have been around in like maybe military units or in firms, worked in places and stuff, a lot of high pressure things, you know, and it's not a real good thought, you know, when your boss comes in and says, oh, somebody, you know, hung themselves. Or, you know, I ate dinner at somebody's house once. He was married to a Korean. He had like an asthma problem. He was married to a Korean lady. I ate dinner there, and the next morning I come in and everything was really strange and stuff going on. And well, I can say his name. His name was Ladner. Ladner was his last name. And anyway, I come and I asked his. I was a squad leader, a platoon sergeant. I mean a squad sergeant. And I asked his squad sergeant. I said, "What's going on?" I didn't know it was his. I mean, I knew it was his squad sergeant, but I was just saying, "Well, how come we're not having formation and all this sort of thing?" And reveille started, and things were still, nobody was forming up, and what was going on? And he said, "Ladner died last night." And I said something like, that's a joke. That's not true. And I don't know, he had some kind of rebuke to me, and then I told him, I said, I just had dinner with him last night. Jeez. Anyway, that's another tangent. Okay. So let's see, where was I at here? Yeah, Finland. And you see, like Sweden, they went to the dark side as well. Switzerland, not supposed to be neutral. And they decided, I don't know, they're kind of like swayed over, but there's strange, you know, realize that's where Davos is located. And anybody can be manipulated. And of course, people are getting manipulated. It's not just because you find a weakness with somebody like that. There's other ways. Some people, yeah, like I said, with money, you don't even have to, I don't know. And everybody has their price, as they say. Wow. So let's see, what else? Remember back in 2021 or 2000, right around COVID time, you had Klaus Schwab. We will penetrate the cabinets. Even the Putins was one of our people. Early we penetrate. We put the computer chips in the brains. Anyway, penetrate the cabinets. But he wrote that book and all that, and it was he was suggesting, or maybe made it clear, or whatever, that they were going to use COVID as a way to seize control of basically of everybody, you know. And now they're going with this computer chip stuff and all that. I tell you, oh, we're in for a real doozy of a future. Makes you wonder how society is going to be polarizing itself. Those that take the chips and those that don't, it's going to be like a science fiction movie at some point in time. And like I said, I had was it right there? The chip, I got a little scar there at one point in time. And anyway, that was a long time ago. They had chips even back then, believe it or not. Wow, in the 80s, in the late 80s. It wasn't, no, yeah, very late 80s to 90. Okay, but let's go. They wanted, Klaus Schwab was saying that they had to persuade all governments in the world to go along with this whole idea. And I don't know, did they? Oh, that was the "you will own nothing and be happy." That was part of that scenario. Gosh, look at all these birds in this tree here. It was "you will own nothing and be happy," and they said that they have to get all governments on planet Earth to go along with this agenda, or else it won't work. And I guess there is undeniably information that said Putin is not going to be going along with this. So now you know what's going on. That is it's very strange how this all works out throughout history like this. And you see all those birds in those little bushes. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll try to hold it a little bit still here while I'm looking at this, what I was going to say. Anyway, you will own nothing and be happy. It's all about control. So, you know, these people, they can print money. They can get as much money as they want anytime they want. But it's the control. It's the control that is what they, you know, in controlling everybody. Look at the UK. Look at the UK. Look what's going on in the UK right now. You don't even have to post something. You don't have to post, even if you like something, they're coming and they're putting people in prison for putting a like on somebody else's post. And even when you click on something, they come to your house, they knock on your door, and there are people with cameras, and they've recorded this. They come and they want entry, and they want to take, say, your daughter's phone. That was one. There was a Muslim woman. She had her thing all over her hair and all that sort of thing, a policewoman. And then there was another young girl policewoman, and they wanted the daughter's phone of somebody because she looked at a post, because she looked at some post. And the mother was not very happy at all about that. It's absolutely incredible. These people are far beyond. I think even Putin was talking about that as well. Not about that incident, but he was talking about these people are far beyond anything that they even accused the Soviet Union of doing back in those old days. Wow, it's incredible. And what people didn't say, I was saying this when they know. Can you think about this? Think about this. What is not said? You know, it's so bad to be arresting you, maybe putting you in jail because of a post or what you looked at online. But the fact of the matter is, they know what you are looking at online. They know what you're looking at. You know, doesn't that bother you a little bit too? The governments know. So you looking at some site, whatever you're looking at, you know, and they talk about the businesses knowing what products you like and all that as to what they can send you. And what does it say? Do you accept cookies or something like that? I don't know, Victorian. I'm not talking about Victoria Newland, but you know, cookies, whatever that is on this thing, and they want to know what you like and all that, so they can send you advertisements. But the government knows everything. It's absolutely incredible. They know what you're looking at. Wow. Also, Putin was mentioning, and of course, you know, the FSB, which is the successor to the KGB. Of course, they still call it the KGB here, but you know, like Juliet said to Romeo, what's in a name anyway? Whatever you call it, you can call it the Girl Scouts, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't change whatever their missions are. So KGB, you know, CIA is much far worse than that. And I think Putin was even mentioning that, how these people are worse than what the KGB used to be. He said he was in charge of the FSB for a while. He said that, at least at this Valdai. I didn't know that, actually. I knew he worked for KGB back in the old days, but he said he was in charge of the FSB, and he said, okay, now we can all be friends, you know, CIA and KGB and all this, we're all on the same side and everything now after the collapse of the Soviet Union. He was finding out that they were still orchestrating things even after that, and you know, what he even was mentioning in like Chechnya, the Caucasus and all, they were orchestrating terrible stuff, the CIA and all that. So it's like they wanted control. I mean, it's shocking. You'd have to watch what he was saying in Valdai, and then you'd read between the lines a little bit, you know. And he said what they're doing right now is they are orchestrating, as we speak right now, a color revolution in Serbia. And I was talking about, a lot of people, for some reason, they don't ever talk about this guy. I'm not saying he's a real orchestrator, but it's a very strong indicator. And look it up online, Günther Fehlinger. I have to say it again, Günther Fehlinger. He is the guy in charge of the think tank on how to divide up Russia after they seize control of it. And beyond that, you know, if you look up him a little bit, you can look up some tweets. Say, look up Günther Fehlinger, and Serbia, maybe together. And anyway, you'll find out that his most hated country, of course, is Belarus. He hates the most. He's not been able, I don't know, like I said, I don't think he's involved in the overthrows, but he hates. But that tells you something. Why does he hate Belarus? Because Belarus was supposed to fall before Ukraine, and Lukashenko resisted it. What a fantastic guy. Lukashenko is amazing. He resisted that, and they never took Belarus, even to this day. And I think he's gotten rid of a lot of these covert people that are working here, you know, through Radio Free Europe and all this. Absolutely. This is an incredible, I mean, what an incredible guy. You know, I call him a hard ass. Lukashenko is a hard ass, but he's our hard ass. I tell you what, and Americans that are living here, all of them, they appreciate Belarus. They love Belarus here. And virtually all expats, because it's absolutely incredible. Lukashenko doesn't take any crap from anybody. So, yeah, just saying. And unfortunately, Orban would be the same way, but he's landlocked, and of course Belarus is too. But at least we have somebody on the other side of the border who has the multipolar thinking, which is Vladimir Putin. So it's at least I don't know. You could make a whole video on how these geographical position and ideological positions. Like look at Hungary, and then you got these Nazi people like Ukraine and all of them surrounding them. It's incredible. Or Slovakia, actually. Wow. Good luck, Fico. Man, my heart goes out to these people that really, they just want to serve their countries, and you have all this pressure anyway. So anyway, they're really working on overthrowing Serbia, and it's not been working yet, thankfully. And Gunter Fehlinger, like I said, it's the worst country. I probably didn't say it. His most hated country that he hated the most is Belarus, and number 2 is Serbia. So, just saying. Okay. And yeah, there was a theory. Some people have this theory, and it's actually kind of amazing. It says that the EU leaders, they need the Ukraine project to create a feeling of unity to stay in power. And I was wondering, well, what the heck does that, to stay in power? How does a war in Ukraine keep them in power? But then you ask yourself, well, why is it, and a lot of people talk about this, that Netanyahu, he needs the war against these innocent people in Gaza and to keep the hostilities going. He needs this for him to stay in power. But and there's some leaders, and I've heard people say this about, you know, in the European Union, that they said that they have to defeat Russia in Ukraine, that it's an existential threat for them, which it isn't. Obviously, it's not. You know, but maybe it is for the leaders, not for the countries. Some young people coming here, not for the countries. So, but I guess what was it? They were saying that they need to create this feeling of unity because the societies are very divided, and it's not only divided on Ukraine to a certain extent, at least where it is with Serbia. I mean, with well, Serbia is not in the EU, but with say Fico and Orban, you know, Slovakia and Hungary. So, but it's also economic. They have economic, and that's of course tied into Ukraine as well. And it's their money problems, and the money problem, that's also even related to their immigration problems, and their increase for military spending because they want to go to war against Russia. So they have all of these problems. And they have their gender issues, you know. Oh man, Palestine, Israel, they have all these people protesting all over the place. They need to have a big police presence, you know, because these people are protesting. And then I don't know, look at what they're doing in France. They're lowering the retirement age. They're raising the cost of, I mean, France is a real nutcase. It's a real messed up job. And of course these people, they want Macron gone, but anyway. And then they also have the climate crap, you know. And but I guess the words were Europe needs a major external enemy to mark its existence. It's very strange, you know, but saying a lot of things like about Vladimir Putin when he was talking about that they've been, and I've mentioned it. I saw that historically, as I told you people. I was doing history and this was not even anything to do with Russia really, but I was doing the like things that are related to the Holy Roman Empire, and I was doing, like, say, the expansion of Germany, and I started on a perspective of the Nordmark, and of course that was the Northern March is what they called it, and how Germany expanded from the Northern March and came into Brandenburg, and then Prussia consolidated Germany, and of course the studying of Bismarck and the diplomatic history of World War I. A very interesting thing. And of course Bismarck, he in 1866, and they had to keep Austria-Hungary out of the German Empire at that time. That was like you would maybe call that the Second German Empire, and maybe and then Adolf Hitler, the Third Reich, the Dritte Reich. But the first, the Holy Roman Empire, right after the Roman Empire, which was a lot of it was religious and all that. Various leaders, and they elected an emperor, which normally was a Habsburg, and maybe you'd call that a First German Empire. But anyway, the second one is because of the influence of Austria. Bismarck had to make sure that Austria was left out of it. That was after the time of Maria Theresa and some powerful things back then. And maybe part of that had to do with this assassination of Franz Ferdinand back then in 1914 that kicked off World War I, who was the heir to the throne of Austria at that time. Anyway, let's keep going. Like I was saying here, let's see. This Orban, he left that meeting shaking his head. It was incredible. He's, that they really want to go to war with Russia. That they think that's somehow existential, I guess, to them. Very, very strange. Whatever they got in these guys' heads. I was thinking it's mostly because of the resources. They've squandered all those. Germany got rid of all their nuclear power plants, and they have the Zaporozhye power plant. They wanted the nuclear power from that, and they wanted other forms of power. There's coal and all that there, but I think the Greens party were traditionally against coal because it's too messy, but they've turned into the war party now. They're not an environmentalist party anymore. They're mostly a war party, and they just throw in some environmental things to make it look good. Wow, how things change. That was just adding a remark there. And the West, it's very strange. Now they're putting up, there's a map, and they've already put up, it's along with, I think, what was his name, an American general, and they're talking about an attack, even an attack on Kaliningrad, to seize Kaliningrad from Russia. And they are very much infatuated with that, but I tell you what, I'm kind of suspecting. I was talking about this in other videos, and at this point we can say if things don't change, there will be a war against Russia. They will be attacking Russia. They will be seizing things. One of them, and I kind of think it's more likely that they're going to be going after Transnistria, and they're using Moldova. They're really pushing Moldova. They really had to cheat on that last election to get Moldova, and the majority of the people, they don't want to be part of the EU. They'd rather be independent and sovereign, and then be free to make their own friends, such as with Russia, and possibly even to be friends with the EU and trade with the EU. Very much like Belarus had before all of this stuff. And I think in Belarus, maybe they were using this as a pretext, and they thought maybe they could actually take over Belarus, because Belarus was pretty cozy with the EU at that period of time, and they were very independent, much more. There was not really any union state at that time, but strange. Looking back at history, you can find some really amazing themes, and you can follow through with that and write a paper, or university, or make a essay or something. But anyway, they're looking at Copenhagen, and they have it divided already. They've said where they're going to make the border. Lithuania gets one part, and I guess Poland gets the other part on the bottom part. I think Königsberg, what do they call that now? Anyway, that would be that part of it, where the city part down there is going to be going to Poland. I guess they said it almost looks like it's equally divided right down the middle. They have a little bit of a jagged border, and so they're already counting their chickens before the eggs have hatched, I guess you could say. And yeah, exactly like Trump, you know. Donald Trump is advocating that these people, you know, basically, and this is not even a you know, he talks about sometimes about, oh, being friends with Russia and all that, but he's also been talking about, you know, like bombing like refineries and oil stations and gas things like that. Not gas station, but you know, gas pumping stations and things like that in Russia. Not that the United States would be doing that, but I think he was like hinting for Europe to be doing that sort of thing. So infrastructure, you know, gas and oil infrastructure in Russia. And Macron, as you know, part of this meeting in Copenhagen with Orban, I don't know if Orban is the one that put this out, but as you all know, maybe in the past day or so, France has seized a ship carrying Russian oil, apparently. And what I guess the whole idea of that is going to be, they seized it in international waters, by the way. And Putin had put in Valdai, he put out that this is piracy. He said, this is piracy. And Macron, he suggested in Copenhagen that the EU, along with NATO, they start detaining Russian ships and holding them like for 2 weeks to destroy the business model of Russia delivering oil to different countries and different places, you know, to where they're not going to arrive on time. And so they're going to be, and that's what the whole idea is, I guess, about France, what they were doing when they seized this ship, is to, yeah, as you know, do what they did. And apparently they want to hold it for a few weeks, I guess. Wow. And he's suggesting all of them do that. They all get together and they start doing this, delaying all these Russian ships and basically seizing them and things like that. And of course, that's the major plan in the area around Kaliningrad. What they plan on doing is disrupting Russian shipping up there. And that's very obvious. They've already done that a few times. Wow. So this is really moving into big time provocations. It really makes you wonder, you know, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Oh man. And Putin does not seem like he's very happy about this. But of course, what Putin also said, like I've said, of course, that they've been wanting to do this to Russia. This has been going on for centuries. I already mentioned that. And it makes you really, it makes you wonder if Russia was ever going to come up like with their own final solution at some point in time and said, we're getting sick of this. You guys are just doing this for hundreds of years and you keep on going after us. Lukashenko, he's said, I've heard him say it twice. He said, can't they just leave us alone? Can't you guys just leave us alone? You know, they got to keep doing provocations and blocking the border and doing all of this kind of stuff unprovoked. And then they make something up like Lukashenko is taking migrants from, who knows, from Syria and flying them to Minsk and then pushing them towards the border. I mean, yeah, right. Yeah. You believe that? No, the whole thing was that Lukashenko was blocking the migrants and sending them back to where they came from a lot of time whenever they flew into Minsk. And then after they started these sanctions and things against Belarus, he said, well, why do I have to keep doing that? I'm spending money and we're putting them on airplanes and flying them back. You just not stop them anymore. Just let them go where they want to go. And of course, they want to go to Germany and they go through Poland. And, you know, and Poland, of course, as a lot of people say, there are mass graves in Poland. You know, some of these guys that went through, now there's a big fence there. And I don't know, some people, maybe they break through the fence. But anyway, these people get killed. Poland kills these people. Apparently, there's been a lot of witnesses to that. And I've even heard from a lot of people. I heard people when I was in my school, you know, in Russian, people from like Turkey and all that. And what other country? Let me think. Some other countries. Turkey was one, and some Asian people, and like people that know some medical students and things. Whenever if they were going to Poland, they were badly mistreated. And a lot of times, this one guy was telling me that in Poland, a lot of times they'll purposely run into you on the streets, you know. And it's like, so some of the people are even like that. It's not just the government that they and I've heard many times. I've heard other people, like say for example, you not years ago, many years ago, before the military operation, whenever you're going on a train and you're going to say Russia, and you have to switch trains in Warsaw. So you get off the train and your next train is in the morning. So you get there at say 11:30 at night, and your next train is 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning to go to Moscow. And you don't want to go get a hotel or whatever, so you just sit on a bench and try to maybe even, if you find a bench where nobody's sitting, if you are lucky enough, you lay down or something like that, and there are some police around, but they come and they start kicking you and they hit you, the police, and they say you're not allowed to sleep or nothing like that. So anyway, they actually hit you physically. They physically hit you. Wow. They said they couldn't believe it. Never had anything like that in their entire lifetime. Wow. I've had to sleep in airports, when you're not a super rich person. Even when I did have money, I tell you what, why am I going to go in some place, in some city, and spend $100 to stay for a few hours and even chance missing my train or my airplane or something, oversleep because you're tired because it's late, whatever, I don't know. So I said I'm going to stay at the airport or whatever. I didn't go to sleep. I tried to maybe shut my eyes, but you have your luggage with you, maybe, unless it was checked all the way. I can't even remember. But anyway, you guys know the deal. So, and I'm starting to think I can answer Lukashenko's question. Why don't they leave him alone? It's because you're there, and a lot of people have noticed how, Belarus, they virtually have no natural resources. And how can it be that the country runs so efficiently and there's no poor people, there's no poor cities? There's sure maybe you can say they're poor people. I don't know. People have lesser incomes and things like that, certainly. But you don't have the problems that you do in the West. Drug addicts all over the streets, people living in tent cities and things. So you don't have a lot of that in Belarus. And, they really tell you better work. They tell you that in Belarus. Maybe they don't do that in the West. I don't know. So anyhow, so let's see. Yes, well, seems like the West is never going to leave Russia alone. I don't know. They hate you because you are there. Anyway, there is a Russian, I guess it's like a Russian proverb or something like that. They have a sheep. The sheep comes up to the wolf and says, "Why do you want to kill me?" And the wolf answers, "Because you're guilty of me being hungry." So there's something in that little proverb that has to do with Russia and the West. If anybody knows, let me know. I'd like to hear about it too, because it seems somehow there's something there. Okay. But Putin, even in this Val d'Ai, he said it in certain ways in other meetings and things like that. He's basically telling the people in the West, why don't you just manage your own countries? Why don't you just better manage them? And they don't. You see the waste and the spending and then their laws and everything they're doing. And it's incredible. And then it's not even thinking about putting billions into wars. And they think that it's actually going to be an advantage to them, because the military-industrial complex is making money. And of course, some people are employed in those places. And the military-industrial complex, of course, they get a feedback because they're paying the politicians for their campaigns to run for re-elections and things like that. So that's how that system works. It's the system over there that is very, very badly flawed, and somebody has to come up with something over there a little bit different in the West, And in the meantime, you got to hope that these countries over here, Belarus and Russia, maybe, I don't know how China runs at all, but that hopefully they can survive without becoming the victims of the wolves being hungry, I guess. So. You think about this, what France is doing, like taking over these ships that have Russia. I mean, it's illegal. It's illegal to do that. And Russia, if they do have a shadow fleet, if they do have one, I don't know, whatever they call that, or you have to realize that if they do, the reason that they do is because illegal sanctions are already put on Russia, trying to hinder their trade, saying you cannot trade oil, and then trying to make these sanctions and saying you have to sell oil for much less money, at a price that the U.S. or the EU decides, and the US, I guess, they decide a price beyond what OPEC says. But OPEC has the price per barrel, but no, Russia has to sell it for that much a barrel, which is below the OPEC price, which Russia is a part, OPEC plus and all this sort of thing. So it's like telling Russia what they can ask for their own. I mean, if Russia goes along with that, they'd have to be very weak. So then they instead, as you all know, they canceled the insurance on a lot of these ships. So these ships certain ships have to do this covertly. And then of course Russia, and I think maybe it was Turkey or whatever, they came up with their own insurance companies. So the ships are insured, but now by Russia. So they just created another way to make money. Instead of using whatever it was Great Britain, somehow in the UK they were insuring these ships and their cargoes and things. So anyway, they lost on that as well. So they're losing more money and Russia is gaining more. It's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible how the whole system in this works, But anyway, it's illegal what they're doing. The sanctions were illegal. The piracy is illegal. And Russia trying to do things legally, it's like, makes you wonder, well, why are they doing things legally? Now they should go illegal. Makes you wonder, is Russia going to come up with their final solution somehow to get these people to leave them alone or not? You never know. Anyway, another thing, if you actually look at what is the stuff that's going on and these things that the West do, another aspect of this is for us to look at is, have you ever heard of boiling frogs? You stick a frog in water and slowly turn the heat up. The frog will stay in the water and won't even jump out of the pot. At first it might feel nice because it's getting a little bit warm, but if you just keep raising the heat gradually, it'll come to the point where the frog is cooked and he wouldn't have jumped out of the water, and it becomes too late when it gets too hot and he's already getting cooked. So that's what they call, the boiling frog concept. And what's going on now with all of these illegal actions by these countries in the West, sanctions, this and the piracy and all of these things and all of these provocations against Russia, this is just an incident of boiling frogs. And all of this applies to every country in the world, that the West can do this to everybody. Look at even the stuff that Donald Trump is doing. Look at the stuff that he is pulling, and you would never think that would be possible. Even Biden didn't do that. So Donald Trump, even though it is less aggressive, and it's still like illegal, it's according to trade agreements, you can't really be doing this. All these sanctions, and then all of a sudden jacking up 100% tariffs on this, 50% on that, and then if they don't, and then I mean, look at all this stuff. And could you imagine, go back in the 1960s, that the United States would be doing the things that they're doing right now? All these things, selling these weapons to countries, and they do it right out in the open, and everybody's watching this. Like giving long-range weapons to one country to bomb another. Can you imagine, how would it be if Ukraine, or if all countries, had to take care of themselves, instead of having somebody not Lithuania, Estonia, this little country, Estonia, threatening Russia, a little dinky country like that. If they didn't have some of these alliances and things, they wouldn't actually be doing that. Bismarck was doing similar things like that in the 1800s, and he was able to keep peace in the world by doing that. He kept peace in the world. Now there was an element of peace, this Article 5 from the NATO, but this stuff is all changing right now. These are bringing us closer to war, and that's when the frog will already be boiled. So just to keep that in mind, and you'll have seen this, put all these things in perspective, and all the things you've been watching for the past few years and many years, even back the beginning, maybe back to 2004, what's going on with Ukraine and these people. Why do they really need to take Ukraine? And obviously one of the reasons is because they want the strategic defeat of Russia, and by They were already trying to take Chechnya. You already saw that. They're doing all of these things. It's incredible. And anyway, you can write a book about this stuff and try to figure out what the machinations are of who's doing what to who and everything else. Anyway, that's about all I have to say for right now. There's so much news, like you can't say everything, and I don't even ever know where to start. Where do I start? There's so much stuff going on in the world. But anyway, everybody, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.